and then we'll go from there. Let us pray. Father, just thank you for this wonderful day you've given us. Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve in office here in South Carolina, and just thank you for the opportunity that each and every one of us has to live in a free America that we have. Father, just be with those people that are sick and suffering. Father, you can heal them, and we just ask you to put your healing hand on them and just lead them and guide them, whether they're either physically sick or mentally sick. You know who they are. Father, each of us have families and friends, and we appreciate those families and friends. Just thank you for them. Father, just be with us each day. You have a mission that you've set out before each of us to carry out, and we ask you to help us to understand that mission and carry it out. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let's stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It's obviously we'd like to have a larger turnout than we do tonight, but I want to thank Meals on Wheels for allowing us to have access to this facility. If you haven't done it, I want to plug Meals on Wheels right here because Ruth and I have gone out. I think a lot of the elected officials have gone out and run the routes. If you hadn't done it, get out and help them with the routes. I know they're always looking for somebody. You need substitutes all the time. So, and I know the Easley Rotary Club is out. We do Fridays right now, and I think we're going to pick up Thursdays and Fridays. So, and they'll help you with it. If you hadn't done it, it's not bad. It's you get out and usually anywhere from 8 to 12 meals or something like that you deliver, and there's an instruction sheet that you can follow, and it's very easy to get out and meet people. And I know every now and then it pays off big. I think y'all had an individual this week or last week that they found laying in the floor that had been laying there for a number of hours. So without that Meals on Wheels delivery, that person, and I don't know how they are today, but they wouldn't. That's good. So anyway, Davey, thank you for coming out and participating with me. Davey does a great job. We're lucky. Pickens County is lucky to have Davey. He's in the leadership in the House because he's been there so long. I had the opportunity to serve with him at one time down there. But as chairman of the Ag Committee, he's watching out for us at the state level, and he's also watching out for us back here at home because, I know he stays involved in not only economic development but also making sure that we get funds home that we need to have at home. But Davey, thank you. And then I can't go without thanking Ruth, my wife over here. She's put up with me. I first ran for office in 1992, actually, and I went back home and I asked her if it was all right for me to run. She said no, and I said I did it anyway. So, but anyway, she supported me for a long time and all my crazy endeavors, and I appreciate that very much. Last week at the Rotary, I don't know who, is anybody here in Easley Rotary? I don't think they are, but John Adams is the preacher. Have y'all ever listened to, at the First Baptist in Easley, does anybody go there? But if you've ever heard him, he's a pretty good speaker. He came and he spoke to the Rotary Club there in Easley. And the first thing he did once he started was got up and he started talking about how, and I hate to use words for him, but he's concerned about the direction of our country and where we were going and how we were doing. And he used the word contempt, and I hear the word contempt of court and stuff like that, but I really never thought about it. In the book, Love Your Enemies, it talks about contempt and how contempt is killing America. And contempt is not necessarily an argument that you're having, but it's your failure to respect other individuals and listen to their side of the story. Of course, when John started talking, I was trying to call under the table because I thought he was talking to me because he was talking to politicians. But, and it was a very good message. I'm actually reading the book now. It says, Love Your Enemies. I called Ruth and I said, we need to get that book. And she says, we've got that book. It's sitting on the table at home. You just hadn't read it. So anyway, but you know, it's all right to argue. It's all right to disagree, but you need to respect other people, and you need to listen to them. And you know, social media has really hurt us over time. And when I'm not doing too good at all, when I'm having a rough day, I get the attitude card out. I don't know if some of you probably seen my attitude card. Davey knows how many I've handed out, probably close to 2,000 of them. But and I have dyslexia, so I'm gonna read it, and you're just gonna have to put up with it. This card is something that stayed on the refrigerator. It's on the refrigerator today, but it helps me on a day in and day out basis. It stayed there when my kids went through high school, and it stayed there today. As a matter of fact, I put one. We went down to the beach and stayed somewhere, and I stuck it on the refrigerator a year ago. And when we came back this year, the attitude card is still up on the refrigerator down there. But I'm going to read it real quick. It says, "The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than the facts, is more important to the past than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It can make or break a company, a church, a home, a Rotary Club, you know, anything. It could a city, a county, a state, or country. I mean, that's, you know, that's important. I remember growing up, my dad used to always tell me, "Son, get the right attitude." So the remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude that we will embrace for that day. We cannot change the past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in certain ways. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. That poem's written by Chuck Swindoll. And, you know, that, to me, that's, if you carry that around, even if you don't have it, just remember it and think about it. But that's helped. Like I said, I had it on the refrigerator. The girls would come home from school, they'd be mad. I'd point to the attitude up there. I'd come home from school, or come home from work, I'd be mad. The girls would go over to the refrigerator and point to the attitude form. Dad, read the attitude form. Is that me? See if I can do it. Is it me or you? All right. Okay. You over chuckling at me, that's what it is. You know, when we go to Columbia, when we take an oath of office, and we're up here, I'm doing town hall meeting today, and I really want each of you to have some input because I want to hear what you've got to say. Davey wants to hear what you've got to say. If you like what we're doing, you can talk about that. If you don't like what you're doing, you definitely need to talk about that. But when we take our oath of office, the one thing that we do is we swear to protect the Constitution of this state and the United States. That's probably one of the most important things we do. Now, if we don't like the Constitution, if we don't like what's in the Constitution, we can change that. We can change that through legislation, and then we come back and give it to the people. Just like last year, we wanted to change, and I say we, I voted for it, the Secretary of Education, and make that an appointed position by the governor. We passed that. We sent it to the people. The people rejected it, so we couldn't change the Constitution. I'm working on the balanced budget amendment in the federal government. It's Article 5 amendment, and I support that. And a convention of states to require the federal government to balance the budget. And that's another way to change it. Now, to do that, we'd have to call for a convention of states. It'd take 32 or 34 states to call for the convention. We'd have to pass the bill or whatever we want to put in the Constitution. And then it takes 38 states to ratify. So I think it's a pretty safe, as long as you're single subject. I do not want to mess with the Second Amendment. I think there's a lot of us that have concerns that the Second Amendment could be tied into a convention of states. But if we specifically tie it to a balanced budget amendment, I'm good with it. I serve on several committees. Yeah, well, let me.
Those have always worked just fine before. I don't know what happened.
It's winter time and I've got a sweater on. Can you hear me? Is that all right? Is that all right? John, you got me? You picking that one up? How about that? Is that good? You good now? It's working there. Okay. All right. Anyway, the committees that I serve on, and I'm telling you that because I'm telling you where I can have impact in Columbia if you've got issues you want to talk about. I serve on agriculture. I serve on natural resources and wildlife. I serve on corrections, which is an interesting committee because I'll be honest with you, when I got on there, I didn't think I would enjoy it, and I've enjoyed it a lot. I've had the opportunity to go down to many of the corrections facilities, Lee Corrections, and go in the facilities, sit in the cell blocks and try to understand what's going on with our inmates down there and what we can do to improve that. I serve on judiciary, which is an interesting one, having not a non-lawyer on there. I'm a ditch digger by trade. I've spent is on. Okay.
I'm on now.
Like I say, I'm a ditch digger by trade, but I spent a lot of time dealing with lawyers, so I've learned a lot in the Judiciary Committee and Education Committee. That's the 5th committee that I serve on, and I've enjoyed that very much. We are working on several things right now. Probably one of the most important, we've got a big education bill we're working on. And I think what I've learned there is that probably the most important thing we can do in education is focus on the kids from K to 3 and help improve their reading skills. I am one that had a hard time there. I mentioned a minute ago that I've got dyslexia, and I actually had to repeat the 3rd grade because my reading skills were poor. So anything we can do, and I know Camp IROC that we do here in Pickens County has helped a lot with our kids, and I mean that's very impressive. The other thing that I'm on a committee right now to deal with is our school educational funding. It's very complicated to understand it. If you're in if you're in that, like at the school district office, if you go up there and you've got somebody that specializes in it, they understand it. For Davey and me to understand it, we understand it to a point. But we really probably need to make a major change in how we fund education in this state. And in order to do that, there's going to be winners and losers. And we talked about this yesterday. I was talking in Columbia. We're going to have to get, in our opinion, the governor on board. And we're going to have to really go around the state. And the public's going to have to get involved. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like because we're just starting an ad hoc committee to work on educational funding. But that's kind of some of the things that I'm worked on. With that, I'm going to stop. Davey, you want to go ahead and kind of give a lead in, and then we're just going to open it up. And
Thank you, Rex. It's good to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. You could have been a lot of different places, and thank you for being here. There's a lot of elected officials here, and you know that anytime you offering a town hall or a time to come and talk to elected officials, sometimes people will gripe about it, but they won't show up. So I appreciate y'all showing up, and I know there's a lot of folks that couldn't be here. There's a lot of different things going on, but thank you. Meals on Wheels, Kim, thank you for what you do. She's never going to run out of a job, I can assure you of that. So, but she does a great job. But as Rex said, I have the privilege that I just finished my 15th year in the State House. I just finished my 5th year as chairman of the House Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Environmental Affairs Committee. We do a lot of things. I travel this state quite a bit, ag-related issues. I was in Columbia, what's the night, Thursday? I was in Columbia Tuesday night, speak to a group of poultry growers, and I got to be somewhere next week speaking to a group of hunters, and I got to be somewhere the next week speaking to a group of farmers, and so I get an opportunity to travel the state speaking to a lot of different people. But agriculture is the number one issue, number one industry in the state of South Carolina. People don't understand that sometimes. They think that economic development, and they think that tourism, and they think that all these things are number one, but agriculture is still number one in the state of South Carolina. But I can tell you it's slipping. It's losing ground because it's a whole lot easier for these people to sell their farms to a developer than it is to continue to farm it or continue to grow crops on it. And we're seeing a lot of that in the state of South Carolina. And the more folks that move into this state, the less and less farms that you'll see. I was speaking with a gentleman who's a third generation farmer this past week when I was in Columbia. And he said, I'm the last generation. He said, I'll sell my land as soon as I get to where I can't farm it anymore. But agriculture is number one in the state of South Carolina. But I can assure you that economic development is very important as well. And I know that our county guys have done a good job of attracting and attempting to attract a lot of good industry to come to South Carolina and come to Pickens County in particular. And things are definitely improving in that area. But again, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to open it up for questions. We could stand up here and talk the whole time, but that's not what you came for. And so we're going to open it up for questions. And after it's over, if you have any questions, you can ask Rex, and he'll answer all your questions, and I'll sit back and listen to him. But I enjoy serving with Rex and the rest of the delegation. And having said that, Rex, we'll just, unless you got something else, we'll just.
I would like to throw this in. You mentioned agriculture and how important it is for the state. The John Delhouse School, which has had some issues in the past, we got some current legislation turning that into the governor's school for agriculture and natural resources, I believe. So there's probably going to be a couple of hundred kids that'll go there. I mean, we have not had a high school focused on agriculture, and that's coming up. I think the first class will be next year. And so that's impressive to me that we're doing that. And that's down either Greenwood, McCormick County, or at McCormick County. So, but.
And Pickens County is also expanding their agriculture program at the Career Center. So they're adding another class next year. So I think that was encouraging as well. Okay.
Floor is yours.
Yep. We're here to answer.
I'll bring a mic around to anybody that's got a question. I got one. Are we still number one in peaches?
Actually, we are. You know, most people think that Georgia's the peach state, but this 2018, I hadn't seen the figures for 2018. We were number one. We had an overabundance of peaches this year. It was one of the worst years for selling peaches as opposed to growing peaches. We had an abundant crop. And the reason for that was because that California got an early start on growing their peaches, and they shipped them in to the south region, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and there was just an overflow of peaches. And by the time the peach crop got ready in South Carolina, the market was flooded already with peaches from out of state. And so it was one of the worst years for South Carolina, not for growing, but for selling. There was a lot of wasted product and a lot of wasted peaches and especially in the Gaffney, Spartanburg area, you know, where it's the strongest. But
In Johnson, South Carolina.
yeah, the folks over there have told me that this was one of the worst years for selling they'd ever had because the market was already flooded from out of state. So we need to figure out a way to keep California out of South Carolina. Yeah, really.
Well, I can throw questions at you all day if you need questions. Here we go. Michael?
Thank you for having this town hall meeting. I appreciate that. I think of the most important thing for me as the state moves forward for future generations and for our country, and it always boils down to our young folks, the way that they're being trained, the way that they're being educated. And so I was writing the other day, and I wrote, in its purest sense, public education, and I'm talking about public education. It's supposed to survey the expansive nooks and crannies of knowledge unknown, explore both the objective and subjective realities for additional context in learning. It gives us, you know, when we learn objective truth and subjective, it just gives us more context as we grow. Be an exciting adventure to challenge and inspire the recesses of developing minds, expose students to a wide and panoramic view of history, and then lastly, ground them in the basics of common human decency, kindness, and respect for others. That doesn't sound like our public school system today. And so my question is this. Right now in the public sphere, and whether you're talking about universities or you're talking about, you know, elementary school, middle school, all of that, the public schools, there is a slant. There is an ideological slant being taught in public schools. They are not getting the wide and panoramic view of history, which includes Christianity, right? They're being taught secular humanist, what I call indoctrination, the doctrines of secular humanism. And if people want to read it, go to Manifesto 1, 2, and 3. They'll get a real good idea of what secular humanism is all about. The Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that secular humanism is a religion. That is in our public schools, that's in our universities. So my question is there something that we can do in terms of laws at the state level to say no more with the ideological slant? Let's teach the broad and panoramic view of history, of education, and do it from an ideological neutral perspective. Is there a way that we can fight back and say, you know, will you pledge not to slant an ideology in the classroom? I think that's fair. I'm not asking to slant it to Christianity, although I'd love that, but in the public schools, we understand that we can't do that because of the separation of church and state, which is built on a false premise, but, you know, they'll cry foul. So how do we get the teachers to teach with a neutral ideology in the public school system? Is there a way to do that?
You're going to throw that one to me.
You're the senator.
I think you're hitting on something that is going to be very tough to deal with. When you start trying to legislate your ideas on how a teacher is to teach, you got to be very careful, because if you push something too far one way, it actually goes the other way. There's a lot of teachers out there that think like we do.
Amen.
And I'm appreciative of that. You know, there's a few of them that may not be there, but I don't want to throw, I don't know who they are, because most of them are mothers or fathers, and they have families, and they believe like we do. And I saw or read a little thing the other day talking about an old coach, and he had a baseball diamond around his neck. Did you see that? Where he said, you don't need to get outside. In other words, here's the limits, and you don't need to get outside the limits. Because if you do, then where you're getting into some gray area. I wished I could go down there, and I mentioned earlier contempt and taking a position of, I mean, there's things I want to do that I'd like to do, but I have to learn how to compromise on those positions. And I think it's important to listen to all views. But if you start trying to force something, then you actually are really pushing it away. You can actually create more problems than you've got. I mean, to me, a lot of that begins right here at home, in the families, and the families being involved in the local education and making sure that the local school boards, I don't think we have any school board members in here tonight, but making sure that they understand where we stand. And I think they do. In Pickens County, you know, you may prove me wrong, but I believe in Pickens County we're in pretty good shape. It's other places. It may not be a whole lot in the state of South Carolina, but it isn't in other areas in the country. So I'm concerned about pushing the limits, because you push it out. It's kind of like, you know, you talk about a balloon. If you push in over here, it's going to go out over there. So to answer your question, I don't know how to fix it.
And I'm with you. I'm not trying to attack necessarily, you know, the secular humanist as I'm trying to crowd, if I could say it this way, I'm trying to crowd in, you know, a more of a God consciousness and a respect for the Almighty all across the state. And I know Danny Merck is doing a great job here, but I'm just all across the state. How do we crowd in, you know, God, the belief in an Almighty God and the morality that comes with that?
I think it starts outside the school, and it starts locally in your community. Release time. You familiar with release time? Where
very familiar.
So
yes. Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you've got to get involved.
So just, you know, I'll take it to the university level. And this seems to be a little bit of a scam, you know, maybe one of the biggest consumer fraud cases that we have in the history of the United States of America. So I've had firsthand experience, won't say the college, went off to a leadership course, got invited to a leadership course, and, you know, we'll call it Leadership 101. And it was billed as just a normal leadership course. So I went to this course and got in this course, and it was not a leadership course. What it was an indoctrination of secular humanists. The people teaching this course, and I'm not exaggerating, are the leading secular humanists in this country. Harvard MBAs, some guys that, well, you would know the names. They're just, Jerry Escaveria, you know, had her wife with her, and a bunch of, you know, secular humanists teaching this course, and they made a comment that you know, there's no spirituality here in this course. You know, there's no Christ. You know, this is all about secular. So the course was billed as a regular leadership course. And here's my question. How do we stop that at the university level when universities, on the syllabus, they'll name the course, and then in the syllabus they'll explain all about the course, but then you go in and it's one big fat lie. You know, it's just not true. And I'm all for the freedom of speech and all of that, but when they're lying about the syllabus and about the course title, can't we do something about that?
Let me, excuse me a second, Senator Rex. Let me tell you where I'm coming from.
Yep.
And I agree. You know, you and I have had conversations. We agree 99% of the time. But the biggest issue is that we have so many people that are coming into these schools that don't think like you and me. They're never going to think like us. They think we're way off in left field somewhere with our beliefs. And the majority of folks at these schools are people that believe like-minded. We're in the minority when it comes to people that believe like we do in the universities. I mean, the big uproar they had down at University of South Carolina when they tried to announce the new president down there. And the biggest issue with the gentleman they were going to hire was he's too conservative. They wouldn't tell you that. You never heard that on TV, but that was the reason that they fought. The students rebelled. Some of the faculty got up in arms was because he was too conservative. And I'm thankful that the governor stepped in and said, if that's who you think we ought to hire, that's who we're going to hire. And you got to stick to it. And I think you're going to see, he's going to prove a point that he's going to be a really good president. So far, he's done a really good job with the decisions he's made.
Yeah, he has.
But his biggest problem was he's too conservative. And that's whether and people come up to me and they'll say, well, I need you to pass this piece of legislation. And then the next sentence they'll say, well, I want the government out of education. So what do you want? You want me to pass this piece of legislation, or do you want the government out of education? It's a two-edged sword, because we control education. We pass laws that pretend that do with education. And when we pass those laws, we got to make sure they get implemented. So do we get in or do we get out? Now, I've heard that from so many people. You got to get out of education. You got to get out of, that's the worst thing. Government's in education. Oh, by the way, I need you to pass this piece of legislation that'll do something to education. So what do you want me to do? You want me to get out? I believe we ought to be out of it. I think the government, from the federal government all the way down to the county government.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we shouldn't be in it.
It's the parents.
But we are in it. And we're in it, so therefore we have to do the best we can while we're in it.
Yeah.
I don't want a college, I don't want a school teacher, I don't want a college president, I don't want anybody teaching my children about sex. That's my job as a parent. I don't want anybody teaching my children about prayer. That's my job as a parent. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to you want to say, yeah, he's doing the right thing at home, that's fine. But a teacher ought not to be teaching my kids about sex and prayer and anything else, and God and anybody. That ought to be my job as a dad. And that's where we failed, is the fact that nobody at home is doing their job.
Mm.
And when we start getting it going back at home, you'll see some of this stuff start changing in schools. Because somebody's influencing our kids. Either you're influencing them at home or somebody's influencing them in the classroom. And 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, they're not going to be influenced the right way at school. My wife's a school teacher, and she does, I think she ought to be teacher of the year every year. You know, but I'm a little bit biased. But she comes home and tells me some of the stories that she hears day after day after day after day. And it all goes right back to there's nobody at home helping that poor child read, nobody at home, even at home, to help that child get a bath at night. And until we change something, until we change the character of some of these people that are moms and dads, we're not ever going to be able to fix education. And I truly believe that. It may not be what you wanted to hear, but that's what I truly believe is until we fix it at home, we can't fix it in the classroom. Because we can't expect teachers to go to school 8 hours a day and babysit and make sure that the kids got something to eat, make sure that they're okay and they're not being abused. When I was going to school, you didn't worry about that kind of stuff. I went to school and I learned. Now, I didn't learn as much as I should. But until we change things at home, we're not going to change things in the classroom. We're going to get this indoctrination that you're speaking of. And that's just the facts of, that's just the way I see it. And we get what we get.
You're preaching to the choir on the family, aspect of it.
We get what we get because.
But I still say our next leaders are coming through, many of them are coming through the public school systems, and they're being indoctrinated. And I am just not a do-nothing kind of guy. I'm saying totally, absolutely, I'm with you on attack, it's got to be through the families. We've got to do more. We can't always try to manage the symptoms. We've got to go right to the foundations, and that's the family, right? But we have a school system, we have a government that it's full of people, secular humanists, that are taking our state and our country in a direction that I don't want to see, and I can't sit here and do nothing about it. So all I'm at, think about it. What can we do to say no to the indoctrination? I'm not asking you to write a law or a bill here, but we've got to do something.
Well, I encourage you, if you've got some good ideas, give them to me. And you know, I've got the Highway Patrol complaining about some issues right now, turning undocumented individuals loose with zero bond. They go arrest them, they take them up there, there's zero bond, they never show back up for court. So what are we doing? We're writing a piece of legislation right now to deal with those individuals. If you've got some ideas on what we can do, now I'm not going to promise you we can get it done. And I'm going to go way back in time to 1994 when I got elected. One of my pet peeves was the tags on the cars, or the lack of tags on cars. I said, all you got to do is write the date that you just purchased that car and put it on a paper tag on there. It took me 6 years to get that passed. You know, so it's not something you can do overnight, but you have to try to turn the ship.
It's a discussion.
Yeah.
Rex, didn't you sponsor a bill or was part of a bill that sort of mirrored what they did in Kentucky with being able to have an option to go outside the school and take a class on the Bible or religion or?
It wasn't outside the school, it was inside.
In the school.
It was in the school. So.
Tell me about that, if you would.
Well,
it kind of goes to what he was talking about.
And
a
this
little bit.
is a bill, and quite honestly, I don't think it has been introduced yet. I'm going to try to introduce it in December for pre-filing, but it allows them to teach the Bible in our classrooms, in the schools. I mean, we're teaching everything else, let's teach the Bible. So it's pretty simple. Yeah.
Okay, I got two things real quick. Davey, I want to say I appreciated, I talked to Rex a couple months ago about coal ash, and I've been out of the loop the last couple months. I'm a single dad and working hard and short at work, so I'm having to work overtime, but I did find out that you took out the sunset clause.
We did.
So I worked hard when that was coming, putting signs out and getting that petition going, and so stopped at coming to Liberty, so I appreciate you doing that.
Yes, sir.
My main issue is going back to this education thing, and I found out it's really a statewide thing, and I agree, a lot of it has to do with starting at home. Well, being a single father, I've got an 8-year-old who has dyslexia. I believe that he does. The school's is testing him right now, but this has been going on for 2 years, trying to get one of the county psychologists to sit down with him, test him. I met with his teacher and his reading teacher about November of last year, and they still to this date have not tested him. I've done everything as a single parent. I mean, obviously I'm not educated on dyslexia and how to treat that, but they have programs in the school system that's there for that. But the problem is, I finally did meet a few weeks ago with the psychiatrist, and I asked her, I told her the story. I said this started in November of 2017. They sent me a letter in May of 2019 and saying that, you know, it was up to the teacher. Well, by this time, the teacher passed him. He's close enough to go into the next grade, and let's put him in Camp IROC, which was a great program for him to keep him fresh throughout the summer. But being a single dad and him going to visit his mom, and he couldn't go 24/7 or, you know, on a daily basis like he could. So he had to visit with his mom. He was out of Camp IROC for a few weeks throughout the summer. But then here comes this year, started this year. Finally, I sat down with a psychologist, and she said the problem is we don't have enough of us. We have like 1 position, 2 positions open all the time in the county. But she said it's a statewide thing. It's, you know, we're you know, I was in the military for 12 years, and I worked for Stan Spears. One of his things was, if you have a problem, come with me and a solution. Well, I don't have a solution for this one. So I'm kind of like, my hands are tied. What do we do to, I mean, that's that K3 or K to third grade that we're talking about, it seems like they're just pushing them through without trying to actually get them help, and that's my concern personally with my kid. And then if that's happening just to me, how many other parents is this happening to across the state?
And you're right, that's a focus that we need to have. And I know Gary Clary has been very instrumental in helping with that. He had a bill last year, I think, that required testing for dyslexia. Now, we have to be very careful because we don't want to add all these tests on everything that we could possibly do. We're trying to limit testing, but we were going to incorporate that testing into some additional, or some testing that was being done. Now, whether your son fell in that category or not, he may have missed that window because that was last year. But we are going back and trying to catch them. That's the one thing that we're doing, the education bill. The House passed it, sent it to us in the Senate. We've had 16 committee meetings on that bill. And that's one of the things that's come up is we really need to focus on the K through 3. And we really need to figure out how to get those kids back on track if they're off track. So, and I'd be glad to look at his case and just see where he fell. But there should be testing in there. Now, there may be something else. There may be something over and above just the standard dyslexia testing.
Yeah, well, when I sat down with his teachers and his reading teacher and the psychologist, and I told him this is an issue. There's obviously, and he goes to Chastain Elementary School, and it's a great school, so I have nothing bad to say about it. But I felt like in this particular instance, something was failed somewhere, and I'll take blame if it's on me, as a parent. But I feel, I sit down, we read, we write, and it was like one of those things. He gets his D's and his B's, and my 11-year-old had the same problem, and I was figuring, well, maybe, he'll grow out of it like my 11-year-old, but he's in third grade, still doing the same thing. And
I think what's key is the fact that you recognize it's an issue as a parent and are saying, let's do something about it. A lot of times in the past, they may recognize it, but they don't want to do anything about it. The dyslexia, it's at one point when I was coming up, you didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
You kind of hid that from everybody. Today, it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to address it. That's where Lakes and Bridges Charter School comes in. And, he may be a candidate for that.
Have you talked to the school at Lakes and Bridges?
I have not, no. I found out about a lot of the programs just sitting there talking with the teachers that, he was in a reading class, and he was struggling in there last year, and they ended up just not kicking him out of it, but just removed him from the class. And the teacher literally told me, well, we didn't feel like he had, we couldn't progress with him anymore, so we just sent him back. Well, that was one program that I guess the county or that school does. And then the federal program that stepped in, you have to have the testing for him to have that one-on-one individual learning with the student and the special ed teacher. So that's, like you said, I'm totally against all these extra testings and things like that. And then there are things that need to be tested for, like dyslexia and things like that, for learning disabilities. But it seems like there's, and of course I'm sitting there with these ladies and they're like, well, there's so many loopholes, and their hands are tied. So, there's just a lot.
Let us look into it. We can check it out for you and see.
Yeah.
We can't promise you they'll respond to us any better than they have to you, but we can at least.
But yeah, I don't know if it's, one of the psychiatrists was like, I think one of the problems is getting somebody locally trained. Clemson University doesn't offer that program. And I said, well let's get that program in Clemson.
Yeah.
So the upstate schools can, progress. I don't know how that works, how we can get that implemented, but basically she said, some of these psychiatrists are going other school districts because they went to school down in Columbia, and they've got a great program in Columbia, I heard, but we're kind of, seems like we're lacking them here in the upstate.
Let's see what we can do. I made a note there. Let's see. Rex and I'll
Appreciate it.
get together and see if we can't help it.
How long has it been now since the State Supreme Court passed down the decision that we had to have education reform? A couple of years now? On the McCormick case, I believe it was McCormick, right?
Abbeville.
Abbeville, yeah, Abbeville.
4 years ago.
4 years, time goes by.
Yeah, 4 years
So
ago.
where do you think we are now on education reform in general?
The Supreme Court ruled that the House plan that we passed this year that the Senate is debating now is more than sufficient to take care of the needs that they addressed in the brief that they wrote 4 years ago. So the bill that they have now, depending on what they do with it, the way we sent it to them appeased the Supreme Court.
Not to belabor the point, what would the bullet points of the reform, the new reform be?
Oh, boy.
The bill's 80-something pages.
Yeah. Obviously, the pay structure was part of it. The classroom size was part of it. The
Teacher break.
teacher, I remember the 30-minute break for every teacher. They have to have at least a 30-minute break every day. Every teacher must have a 30-minute, not a lunch period, but sometime during the day they got to have 30 minutes away from their students. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. There was a lot of things that were addressed in the thing. Alan?
Yeah. I guess you know what I want to talk about.
I'll let you ask it, and I'll go ahead and answer.
Economic development, Pickens County. I've been working on this since 2016, and it really came to mind that how bad economic development in Pickens County is. Now, let me tell you why. We are a member of the Appalachian Council of Governments. Governments. It sounds like a big association. Well, it's not. It's Greenville, Spartanburg, Cherokee, Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens County. And there's a reason for that. We are on the I-85 corridor, which is the fastest growing area in the state in economic development. That's why we're in that group. Now, what you said about agriculture is correct. You can't really compare Pickens County to Sumter County because they're not looking to get the jobs and the manufacturers in here. So I've been going to Pickens County Council for 4 years, trying to work with them, talk to them, seeing if we could figure out what the problem was. Well, I know what the problem is. But I want to give you some numbers from those other counties that I just mentioned. And I was given these parameters by the Pickens County Council. Investment and jobs. Investment in Greenville County in 2018, $59 million. Investment, Anderson County, $254 million. Investment in Spartanburg County, $530 million. Now, this is off of their website. Pickens County, investment, $11 million. New job. Greenville, 1,300. This is in 1 year. Anderson, 1,200. Spartanburg, 1,000. Pickens, 39. Now, I have people telling me, about half of the people on council has always said, well, the train don't stop here no more. We're not right on 85. We don't have enough highways running through. The country is too hilly. These are reasons, I call them excuses, that we're not getting the economic development. I don't think any of that's true. those are problems that can be fixed, and we might not ever get up to where these other counties are, but we should be getting fairly close. I mean, look at these numbers. Every county over 1,000 jobs, and we get 39. And these are not good paying jobs. You know, we brought some stuff into the county recently that's, I wouldn't even get out of bed in the morning to go work for that kind of money. So, again, we've got about half of the council saying we're okay because they're comparing us to these rest of the counties in the state that are agricultural counties. They're not comparing us to the Appalachian Council of Governments. We're a part of that. And we've got council members that are on that board. We've got a representative from Easley that's on that board, on the Economic Development Board of that group. The problem as I see it is we have a bottleneck in Pickens County. Pickens County Council is going to vote yes on everything that they bring to them. They're going to vote yes, y'all come on in, we're going to give you these tax rates, come on in, we're going to do that. So you can't put it on council. It's the county administrator's job to see that this happens. Now, how he sees that happens, he has a guy that works for him at the Commerce Park, was the Executive Director of Economic Development in Pickens County. He's been there for 16 years. These recent council members, the council before that, the council before that, and the council before that has only been here about 16 years. So you can't put the blame on council because they're going to vote for what they're presenting. We've had a turnover big time in county administrators. Hopefully the next one that we get is somebody that will hold this person accountable. But my opinion, if it means anything, is that if we could just get rid of that one bottleneck, I think that you would see things improve greatly in Pickens County. We're way behind the 8 ball. I mean, the numbers are here.
Alan, I'm interested if you did something, you're talking about getting rid of the bottleneck. What would your course of action be? In other words, if you could put a plan together today, what would you do for Pickens County? In other words, what would you go after? What kind of industry would you go after? How would you do it? Would you?
This is my dream. This is my dream, okay? I was born on Clemson campus. Clemson University is in Pickens County. Clemson University has got research parks in the state at different places. My thought, and I don't even think that the Commerce Park has a dialogue with Clemson University right now. My idea is you work with Clemson, even if you just start out slowly and say, okay guys, the next research park you want to build, you've got property here in Pickens County. You can build it on that property. Highway 123 between Easley and Clemson is wide open. There's a frontage road on Sims Mill Road, goes from at the Maltz place all the way to Clemson. There's room there. And that research park would be robotics. Artificial intelligence and robotics is a coming thing. And I guarantee you Clemson's got it on their list of things to do because that's where the jobs are going to be. Now, what if they brought in a research park? And then that brought in an anchor company that was in robotics. What would that do for Pickens County? We've got to be proactive, and we don't have anybody at the Commerce Park that is doing the job that they're being paid a lot of money to do and to bring in some good jobs for my kids, my grandkids, and now I have great-grandkids. That's why I'm passionate about this,
And
and that's why I care.
I understand that. Have you talked to anybody about trying to partner with Clemson on, has anybody had that conversation with you?
I've told people that. Now, I am going to start being a lot more active. Like I said, I've been in the background for 4 years. That changed. And I'm going to follow up, and I'm going to start going to these meetings at the Commerce Park, and I'm going to ask some hard questions that haven't been asked up until this time.
I want to back up in history to prior to Davey getting there. But were you there when Al Robinson was there? Al Robinson, this was not long after I got elected. And I had individuals saying the same thing you're saying, basically. But they're saying, why is there no new industry coming to Pickens County? So Al Robinson and I went over to the Department of Commerce. And we said we would, and I don't even remember who was head of it at that time, but we said, why are you not bringing anything to Pickens County? And they said, well, let's go in the other room and sit down and look at it. And they, you know, you can imagine back then what a computerized system was, but today it's much better. They said, let's plug in some stuff and let's see what all you've got in Pickens County. What can you bring to the table? So they started plugging in stuff. Nothing popped up in Pickens County. We had to get down to the specifics. The NCR building was vacant at that time, and they knew exactly how many square feet it was and all the parameters on that. And they had to plug all that in, and the NCR building was the only building that was listed with the Department of Commerce. So we came back up here at that time, and we got with county council at the time, and they put together, and I can't remember the name of the organization, Bud and Alley and Danny Youngblood and all those guys.
Vision 2020?
No, it was a group of business people in conjunction with Burris Nelson was here at the time. And they said, we've got to do something to bring industry into here. And that's what generated, and we found the industrial park out there, but we couldn't get an exit there at Carty Road. South Carolina DOT wouldn't let us have an exit there. It said federal government wouldn't let us have an exit there. So we had to get Betty Mabry, I believe at the time, to come up here and get an exit ramp to the industrial park. But we had to go through all that to start bringing in the industry that we've got today. Now, you may not agree with the industry we've got there. I think what we have there is so much further ahead than where we would be today if we hadn't said, we've got to put something out here to bring in industry. Do we need to go to the next step? I guarantee we do. And how do we get there? You know, the idea you've got may be right on. Let's try to take it and put it on the table. Or it may be something else totally different, but you know, I think we've got to have another industrial park, and I know county council, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they all know, you know, I think the industrial park's about full, isn't it, if I'm not mistaken? So we've got to have somewhere else for industry to go. Now, we do have the limit that some of the other counties don't have, and that is the wastewater limit. So we've got to be careful with what industry we bring into Pickens County. But I think any ideas you've got like that or anybody else has got, we need to put them on the table, and we need to figure out how to bring the players to them. I know Davey's been very instrumental in working with some industry coming in and making sure that we're supportive at the state level, and we'll be there.
Well, I think that another industrial park, not to disagree with you, I don't think that's the answer, because we built that one, and they brought in the jobs, and as an example, Reliable Sprinkler pays about $12 an hour. Now, all those companies, except for one or two of them, pay low. $12 an hour is nowhere close to a living wage. It's barely above poverty level wage. Again, that's was part of the problem, is they filled that park up with those type of jobs. I'm thinking if you get an anchor company in here, these people will go out and find their own property put something there close by. You don't have to go to the expense of another commerce park. And I'm not, and you said something about existing buildings. I'm not even sure if those are being marketed like they should in Pickens County. They just closed the Ellison plant, and I had a guy call me about it, and the only reason they didn't take it is because, or look into it further, because there wasn't enough acreage with it. But we have existing properties, and I don't even know that they're being marketed. They're not getting anything in them. I'm just telling you, you've got to have to do this, we've got to have a new administrator with a vision for Pickens County.
Well, I guarantee
He
you,
has got to go out and find somebody, probably at a national level, that has a vision to do that job at the Commerce Park, and somebody that has done it somewhere before, and it'll happen.
well,
Right now, it's not going to happen.
I mean, to my knowledge, Anderson County went down there and bought a tract of land on 76 between Clemson and Easley. And a lot of these counties build these spec buildings. They're willing to stick their neck out. You know, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but they do that. And that's how they get a lot of these industries in here. They got to be ready for them when they want to come in here.
And they're getting those jobs. That they got OWT, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the rumor was they built that building for them. That 1 million square foot building, that Anderson County built that for them. And that got them out of Pickens County. They left.
And you look at and you're looking at the stats that show that.
I guess what I'm saying is that things like that are not happening in Pickens County. And it's not Pickens County Council's job per se to see that happens. It is the county administrator's job and the person that works for him. Now, they get paid a lot of money. The administrator's like $150,000 a year. The guy at the Commerce Park is like $125,000 a year. We need to expect more from those, for our children, their children, and so on.
Well,
If not, when they get an education, we'll send them to Clemson University. We'll send them to Tri-County Tech, Greenville Tech, North Greenville. We send them to school. And when they get out of school, they ain't got a job. They got to go away.
If you got an industry that you want Davey and I to chase, you give it to us and we'll go after it. I can promise you that.
And I'm not saying, you know, I guess what I would like to ask from you and Davey is the Comptroller General Ekstrom was talking to the Republican Party, and I asked him the question. I said, what can we do? What can we do at the state level to solve this problem? And he said, well, basically, all you can do is have you guys talk to the Department of Commerce and tell them how things are. You know, Nikki Haley, when she was in office, she said it's like somebody built a fence around Pickens County. Well, that fence is still there. Nikki Haley's gone.
Alan, you and I have had this discussion a lot. First off, Clemson has no interest in a research park, none. Simply because they get federal grants, they get all kinds of matching grants, and they don't want to share that money with anybody. They're perfectly happy where they are. They got no interest in a research park, none. That's been discussed. Second thing is, and we disagree on this point, the previous council before these 6 guys had no interest whatsoever in bringing anybody to Pickens County. They told me to my face, don't bother with it. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. This new council came on board. They doing everything they do. You talking about going to talk to Bobby Hiott? I've sat in Bobby Hitt's office and sat across from him a dozen times and talked about Pickens County and economic development. And he says, you're behind the 8 ball. He says, there's a lot of factors there, but he says, you're behind the 8 ball. He says, all these other companies, all these other counties were out there running ahead when everything was starting to take off. And Pickens County didn't do anything. Those numbers, I'll give you a perfect example. Anderson County, you talked about the extraordinary numbers that they've increased. First quality tissue, probably, at the end of the day, that's going to be one of the biggest employers in Anderson County when it's all said and done. You know what their second choice was? Pickens County. I met with them. You know why they didn't come to Pickens County? Because Anderson County gave them more money, gave them more tax incentives. You willing to pay more money to bring more companies here? Then start a petition to raise taxes and we'll get them here. But Anderson County said, Anderson County, the state of South Carolina said, we don't care where they go, we'll give them the same amount of incentives. Anderson County said, we'll give you, you tell us what Pickens will give you, we'll give you more. You willing to raise taxes to pay these people to come to work? Let's go.
Well, and they pay those people at first quality, machine operators, $26 an hour.
Absolutely. And the second choice was
But
Pickens
we
County.
agree, Davey.
But,
We
yeah,
agree.
but I'm
Pickens
telling
County's
you-
got a problem.
But I'm telling you, one of the main drawbacks is that these other counties can offer them more incentives. And that's just the way it is. They pay higher taxes than these other counties. And I'm not standing here saying we ought to raise taxes, but I'm also saying that holds us back when it comes to certain things. Because I met with the first quality tissue people.
I got a question.
Let me finish. I'll get to you in a minute.
Okay.
But First Quality Tissue said, we would love to come to Pickens County. Find us the acreage we need. I went and talked to the person that owned the acreage, and they said, no, this has been in our family for 3 generations. I got no interest in selling this. I don't care what the price tag is. That's another drawback we have, is that we have so much family-owned acreage that the family doesn't want to sell it, and they're not going to split up and spend $5 million over here and $6 million over here and $11 million over here. They want to be in one location. And we don't have any zoning, and I'm not standing here saying we ought to have zoning, but there's no zoning laws. I mean, there's just so many things that the Pickens County has going against them that I can't come to you every single time I go to talk to somebody that's looking at Pickens County and say, Alan, we got a potential fish on the line here. What do you want me to do? I can't do that, but I can also tell you that Pickens County is working their butts off trying to want people to come to this county to work. They understand there's an issue here, but there's so many things that are hindering us from doing it. You have a personality difference with Ray Farley. I understand that. You don't think he does a good job. I understand that, and that's fine. But the thing about it is, it's not all Ray's fault. But and those numbers are going to continue to increase. In 10 years, if you and I are still living and I'm still stupid enough to be doing this job, those numbers will be probably double what they are right now, and Pickens will still be behind.
What's the solution?
Huh?
What's the solution?
It's not blasting Ray Farley in public, I can tell you that. I can promise you that ain't the solution.
I'm just saying that is the only place that I have seen that you can't get nothing through, and I've been studying this for
You could bring
long years.
You could bring Bobby Hitt up here as the economic development guy in Pickens County, and he'd still have the same things holding him back as Ray Farley does. I go with Ray all the time. Ray calls and said, Davey, can you come talk to these people? I call them, I talk to these people, and they say the same thing. Other counties can give us more. And that's not going to change.
My question was real quick, exactly on what you were talking about, when you said if you want to raise taxes to bring people in, we can make it do that. But are you talking about actually raising everybody's taxes, or are you talking about giving these companies coming in tax incentives where they don't have to pay taxes for a long period of time, where it wouldn't actually cost the taxpayer anything, just let them off the hook for a prolonged period of time?
At the end of the day, Rick, at the end of the day, if you want them to come, you got to pay them to come. It may not be right. It may not be.
I'm not arguing the point.
But at the end of the day, we're not competing with Oconee and Greenville County. We're competing with Georgia, Canada, Egypt, everybody else. We're all going after the same people. And so, at the end of the day, as a business owner, the CEO of that company is saying, on the bottom line, where am I going to make, where is it going to benefit me most on the bottom line? We look at it as our tax money. These guys that are representing us on the county level have to take a whole lot of things into consideration. They got to understand we've only got so many dollars we can use that for. and there's only so many companies that'll talk to us. I truly believe we'd have got that quality tissue place if we could have matched Anderson County. They love Pickens County. They loved it. They loved this area. But at the end of the day, they told me on the phone, sorry, got to go to Anderson. They're giving us more incentives.
So it's a lost cause.
It's a lot, yeah. I mean, it's not a lost cause. We're still, hey, Alan, we hopefully gonna have somewhere down the road, there'll be another announcement, and I'm sure you're gonna stand up and say these jobs are no good. Well, tell those 350 people that are reliable that have a job that their job's no good, that are feeding their family because of reliable sprinkler. You wanna go out there and stand in the parking lot and say, hey, by the way, your job's useless.
Just look at the turnover rate there.
It doesn't matter. They're paying people. These people are getting paid to do a job. I mean, not everybody can earn the salary you earn when you worked. Not everybody's cut out to make that kind of money. So you've got to understand, it's obviously a living wage to them, or they wouldn't go back tomorrow. You know?
I think at the end of the day, I agree with you on the economic stuff, but I love Pickens County. I love Liberty. I love my Liberty. And we also have to be cautious of what we bring in and who we bring in, because I feel like this is the best place for my kids to grow up. It's a God-fearing country, a county, I believe, and out of any of the counties in this state, and I've traveled the state, Pickens County is my home. And I think some of that has to do with because we are behind time. So I think we've benefited as families and some of those hard workers that only make $15, $20 an hour. You know, I think that makes us real people sometimes. So that's the upside of it. To bring life to it.
One more question.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to what Alan had to say is I think economically there's probably three things that are important. And one is you have to have sites. And, you know, I think the industrial park has one site left. So you mentioned there's a constraint there. And then you have existing buildings like OWT, or let's say the Shaw plant now, and then probably Ellison. And the second thing is skilled labor, and we've really done a great job on that the last 10 years. I mean, 10 years ago on the school board, we sat down and we said, how can we bring business together with Tri-County Tech and the high schools and the Career Center and get those people ready for business? And I think that's been a home run. You know, that skill's got to be there, and you got to be able to replenish that skill set, and we're doing a good job there. Then the next thing is infrastructure. And when you have a new site, there's no infrastructure usually. And they don't want to pay for it. I understand that. Like when we extended the water and sewer from Ingalls up to the high school, Pickens High School, was $2 million. It's a lot of money, you know. And then if you have an existing site that they move into, the infrastructure's there, but a lot of times the building doesn't fit for them. The ceilings may not be high enough. The industrial park is great because the infrastructure's there. The problem is you're running out of land. One of the things you may consider, I think the MRR property is right behind that. So I ultimately think you'll be in a settlement with them. No, but I think you'll be in a settlement with them at some point, and you're going to end up buying that property back as part of the settlement. And that's 300 acres, which you can expand up into that area and expand the industrial park. So those three things have to happen, and the incentives have to be there. That's the fourth thing. But my question is this. We have a lock on government in Columbia, Republicans, and we raised the gas tax. We also doubled the pension tax on employers to fund the pension. What I would like to see is a cut in the income tax, and not necessarily cutting the rate, but right now the maximum rate in South Carolina is 7%, and it kicks in at $14,000 of taxable income. So most everybody falls into that. One of the things you could suggest is raising that threshold so the 7% rate doesn't kick into, let's say, $40,000, and the 6% rate, instead of kicking in at $12,000, kicks in at $30,000. So you'll keep the rates the same, which nobody seems to want to cut the rates, but you can actually lower the effective tax rate by raising those thresholds. Would that be something you might consider?
I think that definitely is on the table. I think there's discussion to that effect.
There's a tax study committee studying that right now, and that is the first thing on the list is the income tax. The governor wants it cut somehow. He wants some type of reduction. And I've heard that same scenario that you used as one of his scenarios.
Yeah, because it's a softer cut. You know, I think you'll get a lot of resistance when you say, you got to fund education, you want to cut the rate from 7 to 5.
Yeah.
But if you keep the rate at 7, you could effectively cut that 7% or the 6% rate out for most people.
Yeah, that is number one on that tax study committee's agenda is the income tax.
You have surpluses to do it.
Yeah. Carl?
You know, one thing, when I got on council, I didn't really realize how much money was involved in the economic development. And let's look at the sites. We already had the sites out there. We just had to get them level where we could build a building. If I'm not wrong, it was what, $2 million to get one of the sites ready? And that's a huge amount of money. And so you give these companies, and I'm for economic development, but you give these companies huge tax breaks. You you do the site preparation, you get it there. They spend 15 years there, and then they move on to another spot that another county will pay them to come in again. And then you got, of course, you've still got your building there, and that's great because you can bring a company in. But it seems like, you know, I know that's the game. We have to play it. But it seems like it's changed somewhere. And I think you said a while ago, you've got to pay them. You actually have to pay them. It ends up, you have to pay them to come here to do business. And, you know.
Well, what you're hoping to get is the support businesses around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you're.
But you're having to pay them, and, you know, my predecessor, Tom Ponder, for a long time, he dealt with this on council for 12 years. It does make a difference if you're on an interstate. It does.
Well, you've got.
You will never see a BMW in Pickens County because it's not on the interstate. It does. We can say it doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference. Now, as Alan said, some of the supplier companies are yeah, and I think that's who we have to go at. But a BMW, there's companies out there that won't locate except on an interstate. That's the only place they'll locate. They're not going to locate away from the interstate. They want to be able to pull their trucks out on the road and get on the interstate and go. They don't want to go 10 miles through traffic. They want, if they're going to locate your company, they want it on an interstate. Now, there's a lot, and we've got some companies, and, you know, you were talking about, I was down hunting this weekend, and a friend of mine, we were talking about this. And he said, well, I got a friend that works out Reliable. He used to work for himself. And I said, well, what does he do? What does he do? Because we talk about it a lot. He said he runs a tow motor and makes $16.50 an hour. So not all of them are $12 an hour jobs. There's some higher paying jobs there. My son, I'll just give you for instance. My son started at Kmart. Let me tell you something. Kmart is not your high-paying job. It's a minimum wage job. He started there. He worked his way up through the company, and he was making, when he left Kmart, he was making 6 figures as a regional manager. And somebody told me, he said, well, yeah, he was motivated, and that's why he did it. But what are you going to do about the people that's not motivated? I can't do anything about people that's not motivated. You're either motivated or you're not. But the motivated people that want to get that education and go out there and work, and maybe even get a good education and open a business here in this county. But I can't do anything about people that are not motivated. But it is expensive on a county, and I agree with Davey. We can raise taxes, but let me tell you something. When we talk about raising the road user fee on vehicles does not match what we need. They tell me it should be around $50 a vehicle to get the roads back in shape. Well, let me tell you, you mentioned that to people in Pickens County, and it's torches and pitchforks. I mean, we cannot continue to function as a county expecting high services and low taxes. Other counties can't do it, we can't do it. You know, I'd
Thank
be
you.
interested to hear what you had to say.
Mr. Costello.
First, I just want to say thank you guys, and I respectfully disagree with Mr. Quinn on a couple of things, but I want to thank y'all because you did, when Nikki Haley said that we had a fence around the county, it was true. I mean, we really did, and you guys stepped up, and we had new people that came on board, and not any of us can do anything individually, but we began to work together to try to solve problems. I just wanted to make, you know, I want to make sure we see, I don't have all the numbers here, but I just pulled the numbers up from a couple of our announcements. On August the 22nd, we announced KP Components, which is precision robotic machinery. There were 47 new jobs and $16 million investment. That was August. Then there was U.S. Frozen Waffle. That's May the 23rd was the announcement with a $22 million investment and 114 new jobs. And of course, that's the frozen food manufacturing. And then we've got April the 24th of this year, Ipsum Technologies. Interestingly enough, that's where Nikki Haley's husband is a part of that. $19 million investment, and that's aerospace manufacturing and 55 jobs. So just in those three announcements is 216 new jobs. So I don't know what the numbers that you're coming up with, but that's this year that we were talking about.
2019, my numbers were 2018.
Okay, I'm talking about, right, I'm talking about 2019. So here's the other thing with economic development.
My numbers were 2018.
Okay.
You gave 2019.
That's correct, because we're moving in the right direction. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far, and thankful that we could do it because of you guys up there. And Mr. Seda, you're right on everything that you said when it comes to how we've got to figure out the infrastructure and getting these people to come in and invest. The other problem that we really do have is we don't want to go into zoning, and to tell somebody you can't build that there unless you want us to create zoning in Pickens County, which I don't, how are we going to tell people they can't build something? So my question isn't a question, just a thank you for all the hard work. We don't know a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I didn't know that story you just told, where you sat down and said, look, I know it's between us and Anderson County. But that takes an awful lot of work and an awful lot of time. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all too.
I can't let these other two guys shut me up, so I got to say something. But I'm going to change the subject if I could. Obviously, our county is growing. The Easley area is growing and is slated to continue to grow at record pace. It's no secret that Clemson and Easley both, on both ends of 123 there, are booming. Traffic has become an issue, a problem. People that don't go that way might say it's not, but you guys live there and you go through there. I heard a statistic this morning that was kind of staggering, that traffic on 123 hasn't increased, but traffic on Sackaloil and Rock Springs has. So what I've determined is I actually didn't count past Rock Springs Church either way. You know,
I wouldn't trust that person that's counting those.
yeah,
I wouldn't
correct.
trust that.
So I guess my question here is, I know with the 153 extension coming up, it's going to extend 153 out a little ways, but Saluda Dam is already taxed. What relief do you see for traffic in those high congestion areas?
You know, we've obviously got a request in with the infrastructure bank, state infrastructure bank, to improve 183. Now, at one time, that included Saluda Dam Road and 120 and 135. Something's got to happen there. And when 153 opens, and it's not supposed to open for another year, which is kind of hard for me to understand because seems like to me it's a lot further along. But when it opens, right now, there's very little. GPATS gets about $15 million a year. And we get a portion of that money. That's where the 153 money came from. I got an email this afternoon, I sent it to Davey, an individual asking us to put a bypass around Clemson. And I understand that because if you go through on Friday afternoon right through town, it's pretty tough. And they wanted to put a bypass in that left 123 in Central and came in over on 123 by the Dodge place, and they said it would be $100 million. I think the bridge over the lake would be $100 million. But, you know, there's a lot of things we'd love to do. We don't have the money to do it, even with the tax increases. Highway 186, now Davey and I had Secretary Hall come up here because in Columbia, they don't recognize Pickens County. They don't realize the conditions of the roads. We had her come up here and ride the roads with us. And she knows there's a problem out there, but they still, at this point, have not been able to send us any funding for it. What are we going to do? I think we need to plan for the future. Personally, if you make me king for a day, there's a road that I would, Old Pendleton Road on 153, I would take it straight across to 123. Now, you can't do that anymore because there's too many subdivisions in the way, but that, you really ought to have a southern loop, and that ought to be it right there. That would help relieve that. There are some opportunities, especially with the high school out there on Highway 8, we could probably build some roads through there, but all that being said, we don't have the money to do it. I mean, we can plan all day long, we can identify right away, but it would be years. It took 30 years to get 153 to where it is today. So, I mean, I wish we could do better, and all we got to do is just keep working on it. I hate to say that, but that's the bottom line.
And 153 extension was actually supposed to go all the way to 183, but the people that own that property would not sell their property. We go back to third generation property owners, they would not budge on that property, so they had to stop where they stopped.
I will plug I'll let you, I'm going to plug the GOP meeting next Thursday now. If anybody, we're going to, talking about planning, we're going to have Blake Sanders, the planner from City of Easley, come in and talk about what they're planning on doing on traffic on 123 and some changes they're talking about making. So if you want to come ask some questions on that. And he's talking about residential, high density, low density, anyway, the plan that they've got for the City of Easley. So, you got a question, sir?
What time and where, Rick?
Oh, I'm sorry. 7 o'clock, come in at 6:30, sit down and get you a seat, and we'll start the meeting at 7 at Silver Bay on 123 in Easley.
Can y'all remember what I asked for at the delegation meeting in January? I asked for two things. One is the same old thing every time.
I'm 62 years old. I can't remember it.
Okay, well,
Enlighten me.
I always talk about local government fund. I'm trying for you guys. The other thing was the Education Oversight Committee. And everybody hears the title superintendent, so they assume Superintendent Molly Spearman, or whoever it might be, is the person who's actually in charge. But if we were to compare the South Carolina Department of Education to the school district of Pickens County, instead of Superintendent Molly Spearman being a counterpart of Superintendent Danny Merrick, Molly Spearman's job is closer to that of John Eby. She's making announcements about what the State Board of Education and what the Education Oversight Committee has decided. And the State Department of Education supplies data to the Education Oversight Committee, but it's the Education Oversight Committee that's actually processing it and using it and, coming up with all the decisions. So what I asked for and what John L. asked for, and we both came at it from different angles. I didn't coordinate with her, it's just coincidental that time. If you could put all the duties of the Education Oversight Committee under the Department of Education, then if people are wanting accountability, there would be somebody you could complain to because the superintendent would actually be in charge of something rather than just in reporting on what the other bodies have done. And so, whenever you had that ballot thing, it doesn't matter if the governor were to appoint somebody every year to be superintendent, it still would not change the responsibilities of the superintendent. And so when Mike Fanning put in a bill in the last legislative session that would have done that, it didn't go anywhere, but it would bring accountability to the Department of Education. And instead of having people like Jim Rex and a few others that wanted to run for superintendent of education so they could use that to run for governor and whatever else, you get people running for superintendent of education that would actually be interested truly in education. So I asked for it. Like I said, Mike Fanning introduced a bill that you could go look up from the last legislative session, but do you think this can ever go anywhere? can you do anything?
I can answer the part about the local government fund. We gave them $10 million more, so we're headed in the right direction there. That's a long, drawn-out story, but we're headed in the right direction, we hope, with that. Steve, I agree with you on that EOC. To me, the EOC and the Commission on Higher Education are all one and the same. They're both useless. And because when we talk about education, a lot of times when we're talking about education, we got to have two people standing in front of the room. We got to have Molly Spearman and we got to have the chairman of the EOC explaining their position and then her position. And I've asked the question, so what, do they not come up with one position and present it to us and let's go with that? Obviously there's a power struggle there. The people that are appointed to the EOC are appointed there by the legislature and they feel important. And Molly's not going to give up any of her power as a Department of Ed Superintendent of Education. I agree with you. I think they ought to be combined somehow. I don't know, I don't have the silver bullet to figure out how they ought to be combined, but I think that's a duplication of services and education. I talked to Senator Fanning about his bill. I thought he should have just put one in that did away with the EOC, but he was being a little bit nicer than I would have been.
See, I'm not trying to go that
I understand, but he wanted to kind of sort of bring them all under one umbrella and let them work together and try to have a kumbaya moment and all this kind of stuff. But me, I'd have just gone and just asked the EOC and said, Superintendent of Education, you're elected by the people, that's your job, go do it. But it doesn't seem to be what the education crowd wants. And baby steps, there was a discussion about it. And in my years, that's the first time we've actually had a discussion about that. And so I think Senator Fanning is planning on bringing it back up in January or sometime next year to at least talk about it again. Hope he will. So let's, you keep reminding us every January and we'll see where we get.
We're still, in the big education bill, we still have it out, and we're still discussing it. We haven't even taken it through full committee yet, so there may be an opportunity for that to happen in the Senate. Now, they would have to come back to the House, and then they'd have to agree with it, but it's a possibility. All right, I appreciate everybody.
One more. I think he's got one. He's been waiting.
Here you go. So they can hear you. I don't mind walking.
Rex, about the water department. I was invited to this meeting by your assistant. I don't know if you wanted to talk.
Yeah, bring it up. Yeah.
So, I mean, you know the issue about my
I think the question is having,
6 Mile Water Department.
Yeah.
That I cannot turn the water off, have to continue paying the bill, cannot turn it off. I went to you asked me to go to a 6 Mile Water District Board meeting, bring up my issue to them. I did. They got back to me about a month later, said they decided to leave it as it is. So the issue is, if you have, well, one house or more than one house, and you don't have a need for the water, you can't turn it off like you can your power or your internet or your cable TV. You cannot turn the water off.
So you have to pay a minimum fee every month?
You have to. I've got a house that I've been paying $26 a month for a year. Can't turn it off. Okay, I could not pay my bill. They'll come out and put a lock on the meter. That would be fine with me. But the trouble is, when you do turn it on, if it's a year or 2 years or 5 years, you have to pay that entire bill just like it was on. So I've been paying it for a year.
I hadn't had the opportunity to check all the water districts in the area. I did check with Greenville Water. I don't know what the City of Liberty does, but
You told me you checked with Easley. You told me you checked with
if you
combined utilities. You told
if
me.
you turn the water off, if you say I want to turn the water off for a year, they'll come out there and turn it off or lock it out or whatever, and you won't have to pay that bill, and you may have to pay a reactivation fee, but you don't have to pay all your back minimums. 6 Mile is charging all the back minimums to turn that water back on.
Exactly. You have to leave it on.
And
Well, they tell me you do not want to pull the tap because then you'll have to pay for a new tap. So, only way to pull the tap is if you don't pay your bill. So I guess they'll come.
You can't call them tomorrow and say, look, I want to turn my water off.
I've been paying it for a year because I cannot turn it off.
you turn it off, but if you wait a year and turn it back on, you've got to pay all your minimums for every month, correct?
Yeah, $26 a month is the minimum bill. You have to pay it if it's a year, 2 years, 3 years. So to me, that is not right. You should work just like the power company.
Y'all don't do that in Liberty, do you?
You notify, turn you off, and then you'll pay a reconnection fee at the time you initiate to activate your service.
If you're up to date, when you cut it off, it stops at 0, right?
Exactly.
Liberty charges plenty, everybody across the city, so they make plenty of money.
Yeah, but
I have houses in 3 places, which they in Liberty, and none of them do it 6 months. They just, when you cut the bill off, stop it, you don't pay anything, it stops. Then they continue to charge you the minimum. That's, I believe, I've heard it from other people.
can you legally do that?
Well, they own it.
I went to the meeting and told them my issue, that I have a house that it was my grandparents' house. I bought it from my aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody involved, but I have nobody in it, and it's sitting empty. And I've been paying this water bill for a year now. I cannot turn it off. And I explained it to Rex. I sent you a long email, and you said you would talk to Davey about it. And I have a neighbor who moved out of their house, moved into an apartment, and was gone for 3 years. When they came back to the house, they had to pay, they told me it was $1,200 and something dollars to turn the water back on. They had to pay the water bill the entire time for that 3 years they were gone.
No, that don't.
And 6 Mile has that issue, is what I brought up to Rex, but also just a couple of weeks ago, came through Facebook, a friend of mine on Facebook has the same problem with, she said, Dacusville and Cedar Rock water community. She was putting out that same complaint and they're going to the board meeting and discuss it with them, and her issue, she said, if we can't get them to change it, we will vote them out of office, vote somebody in that will. And that's kind of what Rex mentioned to me. Maybe I want to run for the water board. I don't even know how you get on the water board. I mean, they don't have meetings like our power. I mean, what I'm saying is, Blue Ridge Electric Co-op has annual meetings, lots of people go to. They have all these door prizes, hot dogs, everything. And they vote for their board members at that meeting, so everybody's there to vote. The 6 Mile Water Department, they put a note in your water bill, by the way, we're holding elections next month, whatever, but, I mean, nobody's campaigning for it or anything. I don't know if you have to just get 50 people to agree to go to the meeting and vote for you, or what. I mean, still, even if you got on, you're still one person. It needs to be a majority of people who think like that.
I think it's the city of 6 Mile. It's not like an independent water district like.
No, it's the water district.
Is it?
It's the water district up there. Because I made the call,
They have a water board for 6 Mile?
yeah, and I'm not sure how they're structured. I think they're legislatively structured. Is that correct?
They are.
So we may have to write legislation, but I would like for them to fix it on their own, because I really don't want to have to get into micromanaging. And that's why I asked you to come to the
So
meeting.
you said that there's others besides 6 Mile Water that.
I was just told a couple weeks ago that Dacusville and Cedar Rock, I don't know if that's one water district, but there was a lady, a friend of mine on Facebook, complaining about that same issue. Now,
Water come under the agriculture committee?
It would, but not legislative side of it. The Dacusville, Cedar Rock falls under BDST. They got Bethlehem, Roanoke, all those fall under that
Okay.
same umbrella there.
Okay.
Before you
Well,
leave, make sure I get your name and number.
okay, the one I'm concerned about, 6 Mile Water District, but
I understand.
still.
I understand.
Anything else?
I got one last thing to say. To anybody that'll stand up, an elected official, and do what these guys done, they took any question anybody want to throw at them. I think we need to give them a little round of applause before we say.
Thank y'all for coming out. We're here for y'all. I don't know where Davey's got his cell phone. He may be smarter than me, but my cell phone's published in the legislative manual. I've got a few legislative manuals over there if anybody wants one. I've also got the attitude card over there. And on the back side, it's got my business card on it. So thank y'all for coming out tonight. Y'all have a great evening.